Hey everyone, welcome to the rollout. I'm Lindsay Rousseau.
And I'm Genevieve Marie. Hello and welcome.
We have a really exciting episode today. You must know who he is. If you don't know who he is, you've been living in a hole for the past, I don't know, 20 years. We are joined by the amazing Todd Stashwick. Thank you so much for being here, Todd.
Thanks for having me. Good
Yeah.
to be here.
Yay. So, I mean,
Hey.
obviously, you have had a very storied career. You know, like I was literally scrolling through your IMDb and I was like, you've been on everything. I mean, obviously, the big highlight, 12 Monkeys, which if nobody has seen that show, it was a fantastic show.
Thanks. Yeah.
But like, you're a massive nerd, which is so exciting. Sorry, that's what Genevieve and I are here for. We're just like, okay, cool,
No,
your IMDb is great, but let's talk about nerd stuff.
well, I think it's form
Um,
follows function. I think
yeah,
I was a massive nerd as a kid, which is what pushed me into entertainment. Yeah.
yeah. Well, tell us about that, please.
Um. Well, I think for many of us, the first kind of acting we did was around the table. I mean, I was started playing D&D when I was like 10. So in 10 or 11, so 78, 79. Yeah, I'm that old. And uh, the old AD&D pink box, I think that was my second box. I had the one before it, but mostly the pink box with the Errol Otis cover. Um, uh, but so yeah, that's. I mean, I was always horsing around as a young nerdling and making up stories and play acting with your Star Wars action figures and your Star Trek action figures and Planet of the Apes and all that jazz. And growing up in the late '70s, early '80s, that was just sort of the golden era for everything that's happening now. All those seeds were kind of planted then, and we're still making Star Wars, and they're still making Ghostbusters, and there's like that all that stuff. I I I I was fortunate to have front row seats to all that stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Being born in '68, and D&D first crossed my path in '78 when my cool cousin Tori was playing it, and I wasn't playing it yet, but I just like, what is that? It's got cool toys, it's got little minis, it's got dice, but then it was all on paper and it was mostly talking and like I can talk, but and I was a kid watching the Rankin and Bass Hobbit and the Bakshi Lord of the Rings,
Yep.
and that's what I came up with: Hawk the Slayer, Beastmaster, Conan the Barbarian. Like we watched all that stuff, and then we had a vessel to create our own stories in those universes,
Yeah.
which then kind of naturally extended itself into wanting to act in junior high school and high school and college and all the way up to today.
Which makes sense
Right.
because like improv was a big part of your background. Well, and
Yeah,
still you're present. I
yeah,
mean, like
yeah, yeah,
Second City and then,
yeah,
all the other things that you've done
yeah,
since moving to LA. So it's like, yeah, that natural, spontaneous storytelling just then
yeah,
expanded.
yeah. It's true. It's funny because you don't think about all the seeds of your adulthood and how, I mean, the acorn grows the oak, right? Like all of that stuff that started the DNA of who I am. And then, I was very lucky to have parents who didn't squash it. Who I had parents like I didn't have to fight against it to go, yeah, that's what I want to do with my life. And so I just brought all the nerdiness with me as I kept going forward because uh, so many improv people are all like nerds as well. So it was always present. D&D kind of ebbed and flowed for me specifically. Like I played it a lot as a kid. Then I was a victim of the Satanic Panic, and I gave away all my books because it was a gateway to
Oh,
hell. And and then it wasn't until and then acting actually brought me back to it, which was I've just told this story. Abraham Ben Ruby, actor Abraham Ben Ruby, he's a giant, talented giant who was on ER and whatnot. And I
oh
was at an
yes.
audition. Uh, I was at an audition maybe like 15 years ago, and I heard him say something to the effect of, "Ah, I was up late playing D and D," and now that I no longer realized that I was going to go to hell, um, I, I, I
It's the
kind of
little
leaned
things
in,
in
and I was
life,
like,
What a
right,
revelation.
or I just didn't care. Um, and then, so he said he was playing D and D, and I was like, what are you talking about? Like, there's grown up people playing Dungeons and Dragons, and he's like, yeah, me and Lillard and a bunch of people still play D&D. And I'm like, well, that's enough for me. That's all I needed to hear. And then I went home that night and on eBay started buying back the box sets and buying back the books. I didn't have anybody to play with, but I was at least gonna like smell the paper and look at all the Trampier drawings and all of the Easily drawings and like just digging into the lore
Yeah.
again just to get that old feeling back. And then when 5e came out, I'll do the abbreviated version. 5e came out, I was like, I want to play D&D. My buddy Yuri Lowenthal showed up at my house with the starter kit. He said, "Me too. I want to play
Yes.
too." Right? And so I was like, "All right, we're gonna play D&D." And then I booked 12 Monkeys and left town for 3 weeks.
Oh no.
Um, so
Yuri is like the sweetest human being on the face of the planet too. So I'm like, oh, poor Yuri.
but as luck would
Stranded,
have it,
abandoned.
I had to kind of go through like a physical transformation for 12 Monkeys
Yeah.
for season 3,
And that's shot in
and my
Canada,
train
right?
That's shot in Toronto, but I would come home in the summer, and then the showrunner's like, "You need to get in prison yard shape." I'm like, "Dude, I'm 48," and I'm like, "I don't care." And so I hired a trainer, and I hired a nutritionist, and did all this stuff that we actors do out of vanity. And and my trainer was a man by the name of David Nett, who did Starter Kit, worked for Geek and Sundry. He was kind of at the birth of a lot of streaming Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, Sensei, you need to bring me back into the fold. And he knew Yuri, so he's like, okay, when 12 Monkeys ends, and I only had like one more kind of months to finish it because they shot season 3 and 4 back to back. He's like, we're starting a game, and then we like had our session 0 in 2017, and uh, started playing for reals in like January 2018. And so it's been since then that we're now entering our 5th year of the same
Oh
format.
wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. And I mean, I'm not going to say like you started late. I mean, obviously, like you came back into the game, but like how does it go from just kind of jumping back into the game and then making an entire cocktail book which
Product placement, shameless product placement.
yeah, shameless
Well,
product placement.
um, well, it's a funny story. Um, so, so I had been playing pretty steadily, and then I don't know if you know, but there's a pandemic going on. So yeah, and so during the pandemic, I had idle hands, and I was playing a ton of Zoom D&D, and this gentleman, and I can also once again thank 12 Monkeys in part to why Mystic Libations exists, is because he was a fan of the show, and he was an Imagineer.
Hmm.
He runs his own like cool tiki merch site, and he looked me up, and he does these Instagram lives. He's like, hey, I'm a fan of nerdy stuff and 12 Monkeys, and would you want to be interviewed? And I said, all right, just like this. I'm like, I love chatting with people about nerdy stuff. And so we immediately started chatting, and we were cut from the same cloth, but he had never played D&D. I was like, what? Well, since he lives in Florida, and so are like, well, we're doing games on Zoom anyway. Let's start playing D&D. And so I taught him how to play, and I sent him a player's handbook and some dice. And then his world is Tiki, and I'm a fan of Tiki, but that's his world.
Yeah.
He did the art direction for Trader Sam's, and so like this is
Ah,
what he does. And
right.
so he and I'm like, we should make a cocktail for this week's game. We'll make it themed after the game. That way, because we're all in separate areas playing, we'll have a unifying. We're all tasting the same drink, and wouldn't that be fun? And he's a master with page layout, so he did these. I thought of a stupid pun for the name of the drink, and he created a cool looking recipe, and we would send it out with all the notification, and then everybody had enough time to get all the ingredients, and then we did this like several times, and I was like, I think we're onto something. I think what I'm learning is people like D&D also like to drink. So it was a light bulb
We
moment.
bit.
Imagine that. And so we decided to kickstart it, and lo and behold, we were right, and we pre-sold 1,000 copies and brought in some amazing artists and brought in David Nett to make sure that all the actual functioning D&D components were legit. Like he did some magic items, and he did a playable subclass, an arcane mixture, and he did our NPCs for the adventure. And then I did all like the narrative stuff and the world building and the writing, and then I wrote the adventure, and then Brandon like dove deep, got his buddy Roy Hansel, who's an actual bartender at Trader Sam's, to craft all the recipes. Brandon's wife does all the drinks for Galaxy's Edge,
Oh wow.
and she's been working with Disney. So like everything was like vetted and legit. And then Julia Madalena, and we just got some amazing artists. My son is one of them. Uh, to come together, and the thing came together lickety split. Like we were like amazed at how quickly it came together, and then was in people's hands within months after we launched the Kickstarter. So
That's
that's a very
insane.
long-winded answer to your very simple question.
That's
No, I
really,
love the details. No,
yeah.
it's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of writing, so like you said, you wrote, the adventures and a lot of the stuff in the book. You seem to be doing a lot of writing because you also have a new video game coming out soon, which was, well, it wasn't necessarily announced, but you had a great trailer at the Game Awards.
Yeah,
But Forspoken, which is coming, I
yeah.
guess now it's coming out this year because it's now
It's coming out
2022.
May, end of
May,
May,
yeah.
May 22nd or 4th, 22nd, May. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I co-wrote that with a woman by the name of Alison Reimer, and then we had collaborated with Gary Whitta. Gary did a lot of world building, and he helped launch the project. And then Amy Hennig, who created Uncharted, who I've been collaborating with for a very long time. Um, she came. She was asked to come on board after Gary had kind of uh, departed the project for, it's just the stages of development, right? I mean, it's the sausage factory of making video games, as you may know. And then Amy brought me on, and then Allison had been on the project previously, and then Alice and I were put together, uh, and and yeah, and so we wrote this fantasy adventure game for Square Enix called Forspoken that's coming out at the end of May.
That's so exciting. And
It's
if
very
I'm
exciting.
correct, pre-orders are open. Yes.
They are.
So I
I
don't
get
know, anyone
none of it,
watching the
but
show,
pre-order.
wanna pre-order that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you, I mean, obviously doing improv and story, you've always been a storyteller, but have you always been a writer? Because I know you have an online comic series as well.
Yeah, that we started that in 2010. Yeah, that launched in 2010. We had, just because of actual paying writing gigs have sort of come in place. Uh, but yeah, that very much kicked off my writing career. I mean, I was writing for Second City because we would take a lot of our improvisation, turn it into sketches, and uh, and then, I would put on shows in Chicago, and we would, like when I was a kid, we would put on the Muppet movie and sketches in our garage for the local uh, the kids of the neighborhood. Um, so I've always been writing. I just never thought about it as formalized writing because improvisation is a form of writing, and Dungeons and Dragons is a form of writing. But it wasn't until I did and I'd written some like pilots and screenplays just because I had an idea to get out of my head. But so we created Dennis Calero and I. He's a comic book artist. We met because I was on the show Heroes, and he was doing the online comic for Heroes, and he had drawn me into the comic, and I was like, "Well, that's pretty badass." Just because I'm a comic book nerd, to see myself, in comic book form. And he was a fan of a show that I had done called The Riches, and he was like, so we met just because of the comic, and he's like, "Do you have any ideas?" And I said, "Well, I have this idea about the devil kind of going on the lam." He's sort of a warden who's on the run from his old job, just sort of trying to change. evil is not a force, it's a choice. And so he's sort of weighing his options. And so I had this idea, and he's like, you write it, I'll draw it, and we'll put it out once a week for free and see what happens. And then ultimately, after the first year, we were able to cobble together that year's comics into a book and would sell that at Comic Con. Universal optioned it.
Oh,
Um, that rolled into a blind script deal for a sci-fi show that Sci-Fi Channel ended up buying. So just this thing that was kids at home, make something, make a thing, make a thing. And we
yeah.
made a thing. And that thing that I made with Dennis, this labor of love just sort of snowballed into the fact that half of my career now is writing and the other half is acting.
Right.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Like you said, yeah, people just they make things nowadays and you have no idea the places that they go, sometimes they just go the distance and it's really
Well,
cool.
it won't go anywhere if you don't make
If you
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't yeah.
If you
So,
don't take the leap. Yeah. I mean, it's like, oh, remember this fun little home game called Critical Role? And then it went. And well, then you
more.
like, I love looking at like, Broad City is a great example. It's like, oh, it's like two girls just had an
yeah.
idea for a sketch and boom, Comedy Central's buying it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
15 is the same way.
Yeah. 15.
Yeah. It won't go anywhere if you don't put it out. And also then be ready to make the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So it's like what I find is like, what I found, and I suffered from it too when I was young. Because I auditioned for, after I was in Second City, I was up for Saturday Night Live, and then I had my audition, and they flew me to New York, and I did it second. So it was like, here comes everything. The door is about to open wide, and I didn't book it, and it's like, oh, okay. There's this idea that it's like, well, I have that one audition, this will fix everything. Well, no, it's 100 of them.
Right.
Well, I wrote that one pilot, the networks better buy it and make it. Well, no, write 5, write 10. So when they go, this is good, we're not looking for this, but what else you got?
Right.
There's always the what else you got. That I find uh, a very necessary muscle that you need to develop, which is keep making the thing.
Yeah.
Keep making the thing. Yeah. Make the next thing or another version. If like, I mean, I've made a cocktail book, a comic, improvised theater, like constantly making things so that my creative heart is always warm so that I'm not depending on the industry to keep me satisfied.
Right.
I'm not staring at the phone to keep the artist in me happy.
Yeah.
I do that on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really great advice and really good to hear. So you've obviously worked in so many mediums and so many genres, and do you have a favorite? Can you even say, like, is there something that you're just like, yes, this, or is it really just I love it all?
Well, I mean, I obviously it would be a misnomer to say I love it all.
Yeah.
Um, I look, I love doing comedy. That's what got me into this. Again, Second City boy, sketch comedy, improv. I love it. Um, but I don't watch much.
Yeah.
I watch a lot of genre. And so once, it's ironic. My whole goal was get Saturday Night Live. Well, I didn't get that. Okay, get like a Will and Grace. Like then the whole goal was move to LA and get a half-hour sitcom. That was like that's all I wanted. Um, what as I was moving to LA, I literally came out here to look for an apartment while my wife and son were still back in New York, and I booked Angel. I booked an episode of Angel, and I played the demon Voka who rose Darla, and
Oh, yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, it was. And then they tear off my mask, and there's maggots in my face. Um, and then and so literally like one of my first major jobs, and it was one of those things where I'm like, well, I'm working, I will find an apartment, I will furnish that apartment, you just bring the boy. So like I never went back to New York. It was like my moving from New York was literally a phone call saying, I'm working, so let's do this the opposite way, as opposed to, it's like it's already happening. So it was awesome. if i had to if I had to pick, I would probably pick genre, because I often get to be the funny guy in genre.
There you go. Yeah.
So I get to flex both muscles.
Yeah, you've been cast in a lot of dramatic shows. I mean, like you said, Hero and 12 Monkeys and Angel and Buffy and Gotham. It's like, but yeah, you always kind of have the
Supernatural.
Oh, and yeah.
So yeah, so I do a lot, but if the crazy part is there was a moment in town where half the casting directors didn't know I did drama and the other half didn't know I did comedy.
Yeah.
Because there's such separate worlds, and I was doing all the Darmans and Gregs and Will and Grace and Reba, and I had a recurring role on a show called Still Standing with Jamie Gertz, and a recurring role on a show called War at Home with Michael Rappaport, and it was so I was spending a ton of time, with multi-camera, and I booked a bunch of multi-camera pilots that just never went. But I think, and they're a lot of fun to do because it's like doing a play. But I think ultimately, I like, here's the thing about half-hour sitcoms is it's mental gymnastics, and it's wonderful. Like to just figure out the math of the joke and the sort of the Shakespearean read of all of the thoughts and the reversals and the builds and the lists and all of the things that you have to do when you're scanning your text. But the characters never change because it's comfort food. Uh, you are expected to be in episode one. I mean, circumstances may change, but the characters really don't alter. So by season 5, it's the same guy. But you look at like 12 Monkeys, the guy that I entered the stage and the guy that exited the stage. It's the arc of the character and getting to get your fingers dirty, digging in. I just realized I just became Jeff Goldblum. To get your fingers into a part that evolves and changes, and then to be able to use my comedy muscles in ways that are unique and interesting in an otherwise dramatic show, which is, I think, one of the reasons that I get put on them, is to add this other flavor to a show.
Yeah. Right. You need the spice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
see who controls the spice.
Literally. So here's another feet to the fire question. Hopefully it's a little bit easier. So in Mystic Libations, which is your favorite libation?
I like, see, I'm a Mai Tai guy.
Okay. I enjoy that very much too.
I'm a bourbon guy.
Okay.
And so knowing that, Roy crafted a nod. So my character on 12 Monkeys is he drinks a lot of bourbon. And so, but knowing I'm a Mai Tai guy, they crafted a bourbon Mai Tai called the Scav King. And it's delicious. I like that. I like the simple Bloodthorn brew, which is just dragon's milk and chocolate port. It's sort of the house drink at the Bloodthorn Tavern, which is the home base of the book. The Degini Punch is really good. What else do I like? Oh, Iron Toe is really good, and the Rum Raven is really good. I love rum drinks. I'm not much of a vodka guy.
Yeah.
But I love the rum drinks and I love the whiskey drinks. But gin and vodka, they're in there because people love them. I don't lean into them. The Tillakamori Sunset is really tasty though. So yeah, those are my highlights. Um, and then in the no booze brews, the non-alcoholic ones, the uh, the unarmed punch, it's really good, and my daughter loves it.
Fun name.
And it's
I like
really
that.
colorful because
Yeah.
it's got
Yeah.
rainbow sherbet in it, but it is ridiculously complex. And the thing I'm proud of is Roy did even the non-alcoholic drinks are complex. It's not like here, kid, it's Shirley Temple. Like the grown-ups who don't drink alcohol can make these and go, "Yep, I'm having something fun."
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and
That's
the presentation
awesome.
is beautiful. Yeah.
I have a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
awesome.
shopping to do.
I know. I think my favorite out of the ones that you listed just by name alone has to be the Rum Raven.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
that one's great. And the unarmed punch is great too.
I like that.
But I think because I had to like listen pretty closely to them, like, did he just say Rum Raven?
Rum Raven. And that one is named after
Got
my
me.
buddy Brian Ward, who is and we wrote a little limerick to his character. Let me see if I can find it, just to give people a little flavor.
Yeah.
We wrote a
Please.
little limerick to go with a bunch of the drinks, and Brian's drink. He plays a Kenku rogue, and so the Rum Raven.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want to find it. There's the Genie Punch. There's the Darkest Dungeon. Darkest Dungeon is really good too. See, now I'm looking at them.
Now you're like all of them, except the vodka and gin.
Ooh, the Frog Bog Grog is really good too.
Mm.
And the water, like, yeah, oh, these are tasty.
It's like you made a book of all your favorite drinks.
I
I
know.
Imagine that.
The
Imagine that.
deeper you look into it, the deeper we dig this hole of what's your favorite drink.
mean,
Rough. It's rough.
just
Well,
have
plus
to
you get
try
these
them.
gorgeous like splash pages. So
Oh
Mike
yeah, the art is
Schwalm,
Oh
beautiful.
yeah.
Mike Schwalm
Oh
is
yeah.
he does concept art for amusement parks, for theme parks.
Yeah.
So like just like there's so much like Pirates of the Caribbean feel and with the zombies and the ghost pirate and whatnot. And it
Right.
all actually pays off in the one shot. Now I want to read the silly little thing, and you know what? I bet it's in the back.
The index.
Yeah, it would be under the rum drinks. Do, 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 do. There it is. It's page 34.
All
So
right.
class, you can follow along at home, or if you can't, you can get it at the nerdcircus.com. Okay. Okay. So there's the Rum Raven.
Oh, beautiful presentation.
And
I like that. I like that you're showing the class. Thank you. So we can
Yes.
Follow along. I once knew a Ravenkin rogue who squawked with a Ravenkin brogue. He drank only rum, filling his tum, which is good because rum is in vogue.
Very cute.
Yes, yes. I love it. I love
Very
it.
cute. I can definitely see the theme park Disney inspiration in the artwork. 100%.
Yeah.
It is there.
Yeah.
It's always so iconic, but the book is beautiful. The artwork,
Thank
the
you.
layout.
Well, I was amazed at how easily the world of Tiki, which is all fiction anyway, it's gods and epic stories and volcanoes, and it's and how it married with fantasy RPG effortlessly.
Yeah.
Like it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, these two worlds just fit beautifully together. Yeah. Yeah,
So
it was fun.
do you remember the very first character you ever played in D&D? Or if you can't answer that, do you have a favorite character that you have ever played?
Well, my very first character was Morton Didith, half-elf magic user, because back in the day there was no thing as like sorcerer or wizard. It was fighter, magic user.
Yeah.
They were
Very
much
basic.
more boiled down, and so he was a half-elf. No, I think he was multi-class. He was a half-elf fighter magic user. And so Morton Didith, yes, and he is now the great ancestor of the character that I play in my current ongoing, Perry Blackwing
So
Bly, which is not
cool.
his real name because he had to go into hiding and cut the tips off his ears because during a very dark period in Greyhawk, we were being hunted, and so he he's a half elf. He grew out the beard and and and
Okay.
and uh, and had to shave off the ears. It was a dark time, but he's lives to tell the tale. Um, but favorite character that I've ever played. You know what? Who's the most fun? And it's like I have the silliest times because my home games, they're much darker. They're much more serious. I mean, we the table talk is fun, and there's character moments that are fun, but it's not nearly as performative as when you stream games because
Right.
there's no audience. We are the audience,
Yeah.
and so it's a lot more. I mean, if I had to choose, I prefer home games, but I've had a lot of fun playing two characters. One in Vampire the Masquerade that I've done with Jasmine Bueller twice. I have this character named Crybaby, who's essentially he's a Malkavian and he's essentially he's Banksy.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so he's this awful person, but he's a little tweaked, and I love playing him because we did one adventure where we were brought to a mansion and a youngling ended up killing an elder, like, which is
Yeah.
verboten, and we were brought in to try and cover up the crime, and a party was about to happen at this mansion, and then so my character just started, after everything was explained to him, he just started like wanting to like decorate for the party, so I just started doing graffiti on the walls, but as they backed off, they realized that I was telling the entire story of what happened
Of the
in
murder.
graffiti.
Oh my
So I
God.
was just outing this entire thing that we were supposed to be covering up because he didn't see it as a problem. He's like, no, I'm a my art speaks the truth. So that was really fun. And then I play this half orc barbarian named Alka Hoons. I played it for Sirens for Satine,
Yeah.
uh, and and I played it for you can actually watch this one called Once a Sword for it was done for Shout TV. You know, Shout TV, they do a
Mhm.
lot of like high class DVD releases and
Yeah.
stuff, and then they have their own channel. They were doing a marathon of sword and sorcery, and so we did a live play in between that David Nutt ran. It was like Deborah Ann Wall and Mark Bernardin and Tiffany Smith and Jasmine and myself. Um, and it started out where I was just a half orc barbarian. By the time I got to Satine's game, he's a club impresario. And he's like a Tony Soprano. He dresses like Prince. He's got like Edwardian cuffs. He's lost half a tooth. And so he's like gold plated half a tooth, but he's always got that barbarian spirit. So
Yeah.
underneath the bar is he's got an axe called Grandpapa, which is made from the leg bone of his grandfather, and then it's a battle axe. So it's like the shotgun under the bar. Like if things get dicey, don't mess with the barbarian. So he is a blast to play, and of course, as people like to play orcs with thick Russian accents, so I leaned in, and he's just a delight, and he's got a big heart, and he's very kind, but he'll axe a guy
I
if he's
love
gotta.
that. So
Yes. So those are really fun to play.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're so right about like home games are so different than streaming.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have
Like I
anything?
don't think
Yeah.
I haven't wept during a streaming game before, but I've wept at home
Oh,
games.
I have
Yeah.
definitely had heartbreaking moments in.
But I've also never done ongoing streaming games. I've only done one shots, which usually tend to lean into the silly.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know we could like talk to you all day, but do you have anything exciting coming out besides obviously the video game and everything that you can talk that obviously that you can talk about? Anything coming up?
No.
Shameless plug moment.
Um
Insert NDA here.
yeah, I can't talk about it.
Yeah.
But it is exciting. It's
Good.
very exciting.
So that being
It's yeah.
said, if people would like to keep up with your soon to be exciting announcements, how can they do that?
You can follow me on the Twitter at Todd Stashwick, or follow me on the Instagram at Stashwick. And you can always email me through the Nerd Circus. I believe there's a little contact thing. So go to the Nerd Circus if you want to see more of my nerdy merch. Speaking of, I'm just gonna hawk it. Look at that.
Do it. Hawk away, please.
This is so, like the Nerd Lair that I'm sitting in. I partnered with an artist named Charles Thurston who makes dice boxes. So when we were coming up in the late 70s, early 80s playing D&D, we always kept our dice in a cigar box. So you kept your pencils and your minis, and you would keep your dice actually in a Crown Royal bag.
Yep.
But we always played D&D in orange shag carpeted wood paneled basements. And so I wanted my dice box to be an orange shag carpeted wood paneled basement. And so he figured out how to make that. And so I'm so proud of this piece.
Yes.
So it literally has orange shag mini carpeting and wood panel. And Charles Thurston, he does all this amazing woodwork. And then my son, Oscar, designed these Mai Tai glasses.
Oh, cute.
Which is me walking through the Nerd Lair. And I want them to look like those old Burger King glasses that we also used to collect in the 70s and 80s. And so the whole site is little like, this is what it was like growing up for me, playing D&D and being a nerd. And so the whole vibe is that late 70s, early 80s vibe. But as far as stuff, you can go read Devil Inside at devilinsidecomic.com for free. You can get Forspoken at the end of the month. I'm working on a Marvel game with Skydance New Media, a Marvel video game. And then this other thing that I just can't talk about. But you can watch me on 12 Monkeys on Hulu, or you can go to the Disney Channel and watch me as the live action Dr. Draken in Kim Possible.
Yay.
So, that's all my doings. And then I'm sure I'll be jumping back up to play some D&D online sometime soon.
Yay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Todd. We really appreciate you taking the time. This was a pleasure.
Super fun. I love talking nerdy stuff, and you guys are asking me great questions. So what are you guys doing next? Where can I see you?
Well, you can, Genevieve.
Well, I'm a professional cosplayer, so you can follow me at Genevieve Marie Cosplay, and that's across all platforms, major platforms. Twitter.
Genevieve Marie Cosplay.
Yes, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I got TikTok. I don't use it.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I think I have 2 videos.
I neither tick nor talk. Yeah.
There is no filming space in my apartment, and I feel like I'm too old for it.
I'm 53. Yep. My TikTok.
I'm trying to figure it out, but it's just one of those things that I cannot get a grip on it.
I just don't have the time because, like, the people, like, they're putting out multiple videos a day, and I'm like,
I know.
I can't even do Instagram story. Like,
no, I can't. And Instagram keeps telling me, they're like, hey, we'll pay you for reels, and I'm like,
I'll do Instagram live because it's like me chatting with people and doing that. And then, but story, it's like I have to apply little moving things and no, too much. Too
much.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
So I can find you. You're a cosplayer, and I can go to Genevieve Marie Cosplay and find you. And what about you?
I am Linsay Rousseau. You can find me on all the social medias at Linsay Rousseau, if you spell my name correctly, which, you know, takes some effort. I understand. I'm the only one.
And what do you guys have coming up?
Well, we have this show every Friday. So new episodes every Friday. Genevieve, do we have anything? What do we have coming up? I mean, I've got some games that are in development. God of War Ragnarok comes out sometime this year. And then, like you, NDA.
It's like there's sniper dots all over me if I talk. But I am running 3 games at GaryCon this year.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah.
So I don't know when those go live, but people can sign up for those if they want to roll dice with me. I've got
exciting.
three vastly different ones. One's sort of a D&D version of a Ghostbusters one shot. One I'm gonna run the game at the back of the book, and at the back of Mystic Libations, and then one is like a level 8, like a big old like mountain to climb. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Well, if Gary Con is in person this year, I'm hoping to go finally. Yeah, I've got a Dragonlance
I think
podcast.
by the end of March.
Yeah. So I was like,
think-
I have a Dragonlance podcast coming out soon, and then a new streaming D&D thing coming out with some people
What
that you know, Todd,
fun.
which is
With who?
with Jake and Chad.
Oh, right. I think I've been hearing about this.
And you are more than welcome to join.
I would love to come and play with y'all.
I will tell Jake to text you.
Woohoo!
Yeah, but like we said, yeah, we've got new shows here every Friday with amazing people like Todd. So yeah.
You're kind to say. You guys are kind to invite me. I'm still trying to figure out, Genevieve, what is the sword holder behind you? There's a figure with a sword.
Oh yeah, that's actually Yojimbo. It's one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of Sideshow, before Sideshow was Sideshow, one of their earliest figures.
Wow.
That one is actually not mine. That one is my fiance's. I have a few
amazing.
Sideshows.
You have a lot of swords too.
Yeah, we definitely collect.
Yes.
I got a sword for Christmas.
Ooh.
It'll help me detect when orcs are around.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is awesome.
Yes.
And my buddy had it inscribed for me, and he wrote, "All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us."
Aw.
That's so
A
sweet.
little Gandalf there for the good people.
Yes.
Super cute.
My problem is all my swords are for actual fighting. I don't actually have any hung up in my house, which I feel like I should.
No. I don't fight with actual swords.
I do.
I have lightsabers. Over
Yes.
there, which are often fun to bang together. But you have like 1, 2, 3. I see. Like, how many swords do you have?
Well, her fiance is somewhat of a connoisseur when it comes to weapons.
Yeah, he's an edged weapons expert.
That's exciting.
So we have an entire studio filled with swords. So if you're ever interested in learning how to use a sword,
Mhm.
either it be European or like an Asian martial art, then
Or a lightsaber.
or a lightsaber. Yeah, he also dabbles in lightsaber training because he
Are you looking at him right now?
yeah.
Yeah.
Your whole countenance changed.
we're
just
tell
like
that you were
talking
looking
about
You were
like,
looking at
help me out here.
your love.
Yes, our friend Nick Gillard and Kyle Rowling. Our friend Kyle Rowling actually was the second swordsman on the prequels for Star Wars. And yeah, he did a lot of the stunt work. He filled in for the actor who plays Count Dooku for the bits that he could not do. And then he also plays General Grievous as well with the Force swords. And yeah, so Steve also teaches and trains in that version of lightsaber martial art.
Wow.
Yeah, so
there's a whole like Jedi.
there's a whole system.
System.
Yeah, and so you can find.
That's
I can
amazing.
actually send you Steve's info if you're interested in learning some fun stuff. But it's Stephen Huff at Creative Combat.
To anybody watching.
Yes,
I've trained with him for many years, and Genevieve's, of course.
Yeah, Stephen
That's
Huff at Creative
amazing.
Were
Combat.
you at Stream of Many Eyes a couple years ago? I know Lillard was, and
No, I was at a D&D celebration when it was in Hollywood.
Okay.
When it was
We
supposed to
actually-
Paramount.
Okay, because our fight team actually performed live at Stream of Many Eyes, which was actually the first time I met Matt Lillard and oh geez Louise, what's his name from ER who you were mentioning earlier? And I suck.
Abraham Ben Ruby.
Yes, there we go. Yes. So
Yeah, they hired Creative Combat to come in for Stream of Many Eyes, and that was very
That's
fun.
so cool.
Yeah.
Well,
The things,
I'll have to have you guys
the
come to
people you
premiere.
meet.
Yeah.
I know. You guys will have to come and roll around the table at a one shot sometime.
Yes.
We would
I
love that. That would be great.
I think you're in town, right? You guys are in LA?
Yeah, we're all
Yes.
LA based. We're in the Valley.
Me too.
Yay.
Ah,
It's the best place to be in LA. Let's
I
be
can actually hear you guys. We're neighbors.
this is actually your garage.
Yeah, we just spin it around and you're sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
just look to your left.
Yeah.
Don't look behind the curtain.
Hey.
It becomes to be a Kaufman movie. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us. And of course,
Thank you.
everyone for watching. And please go follow Todd on all the social medias. And we will see you next Friday.
Yes.
Cheers,
next Friday.
everybody.